Okay.
And
Progress.
pencil is progress.
When Jim reaches completion, Whitney will use the permanent marker.
I
There
will.
it is.
I'll Sharpie the shit out of it.
Oh, I like that we're using the phrase "peter out."
I think everyone will like that.
Some creative uses for that.
This episode is made possible by our deity, the Dark Lord himself, Jim Sfasha, and our Thera partners, Dirty B and Pickett. For fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. And now, broadcasting from the churn, that's Jim, that's Whitney, I'm Nick. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Welcome, everybody, as we continue this little show and make our progress. Speaking of progress, if you'd like to hear how I'm doing on my 40 by 40 list and hear the hangover cures that my co-hosts are using
I'll tell you
now.
right now, he hasn't done anything.
Patreon.com/therapy.
Don't waste your time.
You know how the 40 for 40 list is going.
Yeah.
Thanks for your donation, but don't even bother listening.
Well,
Trust
hey,
your
if
instinct on that
you're
one.
at the Thera producer or higher level, you get to nominate a replacement for one of my 40 by 40.
That's true.
That's true.
And we're taking suggestions on the Discord. But we didn't get a chance to talk about it on the Patreon, so I need to announce it here that I have legally changed my state citizenship. I am no longer a Nevadan. I am now from the great state of Kentucky.
You got to pay some state taxes, son.
Do they have taxes?
Yeah.
Listen,
Talk to that lawyer.
I'll have to look into this. But
Yeah, now that we got that on air,
Yeah.
and we're going to post it on the internet.
fuck, IRS doesn't listen to this, right? So I go to my mailbox the other day between tapings, and I pull out this huge fucking folder from the governor's office of Kentucky. And inside, and I've posted this on Instagram,
the governor.
is an actual declaration for me by the state of Kentucky naming me a Kentucky colonel.
Jesus Christ.
And so now I am a Kentucky colonel in Kentucky, an ambassador for the great state of Kentucky.
Like the colonel from Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Yes! So I looked into it, and it turns out Colonel Sanders, not a military veteran, he had just been named a Kentucky colonel by Kentucky.
You're basically the same.
And yes, we are.
Yeah.
And he just wore that name with pride. And so I've changed my LinkedIn. I've changed everything. Colonel Jim Jobin.
Is this
Yeah.
like owning a star?
Yep.
Or the plot of land in Scotland
I
that
have
went
an
around
ink
for a while.
signature by Andy Bashar, the governor of fucking Kentucky.
Andy Bernard.
Andy
That's all I
Bernard,
hear.
the Nard dog.
Nerd dog.
Jim,
but
do me
yeah.
a favor real quick.
I'm a Kentucky
and,
colonel.
spell colonel.
Oh, I have, and I can because I had to look it up.
That's fair.
Yeah, and also it's in big fucking letters on the certificate, which I've already gotten framed and is in my
So you can
home.
spell
So
colonel
he's
right
done
now?
that, but not anything on the list.
Colonel. That feels right. Colonel.
That seems great.
Colonel.
Yeah.
But you can't find an Indian restaurant.
No, I will. I mean, once I start Googling, I'll find it.
Is
so
there an Indian restaurant close to me?
yeah, a few.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Is the
Maybe
answer.
one across every street.
Looks like 4 within a 1.4 mile radius of
Fair.
my current location.
Fair. Okay. All right. So, I will only respond to Colonel Jim from now on. That is my
We'll see.
legal name.
He gave up the doctorate, so he had to
Yeah,
move
no,
on.
and hey,
Yeah.
that was so funny. I posted online, and the very first thing that the Discord says is, "Jim, don't tell Jacob; he's going to take it from you. Like, don't wager this."
Jacob's already working
I
on it.
won't take it from him. He will give it to me.
It was immediately when people said, "Like, hey, man, you finally got another title.
Yeah,
Like,
do
just
not.
hold on to this.
Do not.
You have a certificate. Like, just be the colonel." So yeah, I've been making all my students call me colonel now, and I am living into my new identity as an ambassador
that for
the
you.
great state of Kentucky. Yeah, very excited. But we've got some great questions here on the show, and we're starting off with struggling to grow in my 30s. Hello again, Pod Therapy people. I've asked a few questions in the past, and now I've returned to ramble and vent into an email that I'll eventually be embarrassed to hear Jim read aloud. As I'm writing this, yesterday was my 30th birthday, and today was my final day of work after getting laid off. I'm starting off my 30s with a clean slate, and I'm terrified. To give context, I had submitted a question about 2 years ago about struggling with my job search and feeling like I was disappointing my father. As what felt like a last resort, I ended up taking a 2-year unpaid contract position that forced me to relocate to Texas from California. Myself and about 15 others were trained remotely and moved at the same time, and I'm living with 2 of them now. I didn't particularly enjoy the new job. The pay is very low for the field, and I constantly struggled with imposter syndrome. But finally moving back out of my parents' home made it all worth it. A few months ago, I got into a relationship that, to me, felt like it had long-term potential. For a while, we spent most of our time together, and I was the happiest I'd been in years. Looking back, we both got too attached too quickly, and there were red flags all over the place. A few weeks into the relationship, she began a ketamine treatment program for her severe depression, and it seems like it genuinely helped. Shortly after, I got blindsided by the statement, "We probably could make things work, but I don't see that happening." I was absolutely crushed. I gave, and when she felt better, I was the first thing she got rid of. On the bright side, the breakup led to me to begin hiking as a hobby, and was the push I needed to find a therapist, who I am still working with now. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago. It turns out that due to some New Year budget changes, me and 3 others were the lucky winners of a layoff. The silver lining is that I'm now free of the 2-year contract, which otherwise would have cost $30,000 to break.
Oh my God.
Wow, that's interesting. But of course, now I'm without income and insurance, things I generally like to have. The smart thing to do would probably be to move back home during my job search, but I can't help but see that option as failure. I have enough savings to remain where I am for a few months, but it won't last forever. I know getting a new job is doable, but I'm constantly overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty. I've always been a passive person who struggles to put in efforts toward my goals, and the only coping method I've learned growing up is avoidance. I know I need to get to work, updating my resume, sending applications, and working on a new portfolio project, but I often find myself logging into my comfort video game instead. When I do get some work done, I can't help but feel like the effort wasn't enough, and again move towards video games to cope. I've also wanted to start learning to make games, but similarly, the fear of failure makes it almost impossible to begin. This clean slate is the perfect opportunity for me to grow as a person, but I'm struggling to get started and work, especially now that I need to hold myself accountable. Do you guys have any advice on how I can overcome this hesitation and move forward with my life? Thanks for reading, and apologies for the length. Looking back, I probably could have condensed the relationship section to after a breakup. I guess I'm not completely over it yet, and it's not like I can rewrite it now. Thanks for the advice and laughs. You've all made driving much more enjoyable since I found your podcast. Signed, Alex, the PB&J with granola guy. Pronouns are he and him.
Aw. The fear of failure. That is so strong. And admittedly, that is an area that, personally I struggle with, but also just, I feel like a lot of my clients come in and it's like a long process of picking apart moments when they want to do things and what's going through their mind. And
Right.
man, that is so tough. And really what I go to for that when working with clients is, have we tried something small that feels uncomfortable? Something you may not be good at. There's always exposure therapy, right? Like, I just saw this on a YouTube channel the other day, a guy going through like rejection therapy. It was really interesting. But yeah, just putting yourself out there and getting rejected and feeling the uncomfortableness in that. So,
wait, that's exposure therapy? Oh, those strip clubs. No wonder they were so confused.
Yeah. That's also why they don't take your insurance.
Yeah.
Oh, they
a lot
do
of
now.
rejection
Oh,
there.
good.
Yeah.
You use your HSA card.
That's it.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And you can also get stamps.
Stamps.
No, but it's a real thing. And I think one of the things, too, that's really tough about this letter is whenever you feel like you have to kind of strategically retreat to a position that you were in, like it feels like it's returning to step one.
Yeah.
And for a lot of humans, like if they go back and live with family, like, oh, I've fallen all the way back down the tree. Mm-hmm. And it's really unfortunate, right? Because like a therapist sitting with you, talking through that rationally, we're going to really lean hard on the perspective that that is not it, right? Like you can occupy the same position in a location, you are not in the same position of time.
Correct.
Right? Or life experience. And so, and now that's also, the theory is what family is for. Like, it's okay that this is a temporary fallback position because it makes the most economical sense to like get rid of your bills for a while to extend your search time and like find something that works for you. Totally. I want to confront that, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us, I think, but I think we also on a human level understand the pride, that sense of like, oh no,
Do we know how far away parents are?
I think California. A writer had said, I moved to Texas from California.
Okay.
And it sounds like this would be a return back to, the parents.
Yeah. So I would say just fiscally as well, you got to think about it's going to cost you to move out of your current place and into your parents' place.
Yeah.
And then it's going to cost you again to move from your parents' place back into whatever new place you get to.
Sure.
So you got to take those expenses into account when you're kind of balancing this as well.
Fair.
I mean, like you, I live a long way from where my parents live. So like it wouldn't be just a flippant, easy decision.
No.
It's going to be
country.
It's going to be a real chunk of cash to move everything down to the parents' place.
Yeah. I like the way the writer is saying, I have a blank slate. I'm starting off my 30s.
That can be very
with a blank
overwhelming,
slate.
like intimidating.
It
like you can do anything. It's like,
I know. Yeah, what we would call a good problem.
A lot of pressure here.
You didn't love this job, and there was a $30,000 gun against your head to finish this work, and like you didn't have the freedom to look around. Suddenly, now you do, and like. But I do like the reframe of I have blank slate because I think that language it implies universal opportunity, and that's a great theory of this case, right? Like it's not a lack of opportunity. All ideas are on the table, but there is this analysis paralysis that can happen whenever it's all fucking ideas on the table.
But it's like you just said, like you're not, even if you do move back in with your parents, you're not moving back to when you were 18 years old.
Right.
You're still not moving back to that blank slate because you do have all of your experiences. You have all of the intelligence you've gained. You have all of the wisdom you've gained.
Yes.
You have all of that for the last, 12 years, however long it's been since you lived with your parents.
The resume is much fuller. And it tells a story of, hey, job experience. I've been in the field.
Yeah.
That's really useful.
I also was going to say something about the cognitive reframing because, I mean, kind of the same way with the relationship too. Because there's always things that are going to happen. And if you get to a point where you can look at it as in like, okay, well, here's an opportunity. I didn't want this to happen, but I also was not going to take any action. And life kind of has a way of forcing you to take action. And sometimes it comes in the form of a relationship that ends or getting laid off of work. I've lost a couple jobs, and in hindsight, it was good because like it kind of led me to where I am now, and I wasn't going to leave those jobs.
I've seen other people go through that too. They're like, oh, this is stressful. Then they're like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. Actually, this other job I went to was even better.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
You kind of have to, I mean, when you get comfortable, you kind of stop growing. So when these shakeups happen and they force you to take action, then that means that you have to grow stronger.
Yeah. That's a great reframe. And fundamentally, because the writer's asking toward the end, Alex says, so like, how do I overcome my hesitation, right? Like, how do I get some momentum here? And this is a really good question, Alex, because I think there's a lot of us who have faced a big obstacle in our lives. Sometimes it's a mountain of debt, or sometimes it's a career navigation, or sometimes it's a health goal, or whatever. And sometimes exactly what you're talking about, you get so overwhelmed staring at the mountain in front of you and the enormity of the unknown that you run to the familiar. You just go, you know what? I can't take this on right now. It's like jumping into the ocean. So I'm just going to go over here and play my video game, or I'm going to go back over to my favorite show, or I'm just going to go get my comfort food or do some other task. It is a really hard thing. But it comes back to that old metaphor of like the way you eat the whale, right, is like one bite at a time. And so we want to look at this big project. And the very first thing that I want to do, and I hope that you're still able to access your therapist during this time. You mentioned that was a really useful thing. And if you've discontinued that care a while ago, this is a great opportunity to get back into it, because like counseling for jobs and career and direction, life navigation, man, those are really important parts of mental health. And it's one of my favorite things to do.
I was going to say, as a therapist, I see the most progress when I'm like, all right, this is your assignment this week.
Yes.
Complete your resume and let me know when
and we're going over it together, and like job coaching, I think it's just a really big part of this. And the things that I usually like to do, Alex, and again, you're saying, hey man, I'm a blank slate right now. The very first thing I usually have people do is introspective. So before I want them actually dropping applications in every direction, I let them start a few steps before that, because I know that would be overwhelming. And also if you don't know what you want to catch, I don't want you to fish yet, because you might not be able to pull it into the boat, right? And so that might not be what you're looking for. So the very first step that I usually have people start with on this kind of issue is self-exploration with what kinds of careers and jobs and industries appeal to me right now. At this point in my life, with the experience I have and the knowledge I've gained and the person I've become, what do I feel connected to? And we usually do some personality testing to kind of get to the bottom of that.
That's a great point, yeah.
ONET is one of my favorite tools on this. Type in ONET, Personality Inventory or Career Assessment Inventory. It's a free test.
It's not an Oprah thing?
It is not.
Okay.
Not yet, anyway. But no, it's a free test that you take. It's personality driven, and it's very scientifically validated. And when you finish the test, it says, hey, these are your personality traits according to this test. People that have your personality tend to end up in these clusters of careers. And then it just gives you all these suggestions, and it divides the list into 5 different sections according to amount of preparation it would take to get in that career. So job section 5 is probably some kind of degrees, probably some kind of experience or special licenses. Whereas job sector 1 is you could do the smack out of high school. And every one of them, you click on them, it'll tell you about the future of the job. You can go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You can learn about how much they make, what regions of the country they're strong in. You can really do the research on it. So the very first step that I do with patients is I have them take the ONET. We go through their list of all the things that were recommended. We identify words they've never seen before, careers they've never heard of before, and we just start a learning campaign where we say we're going to start open-minded, and on every list you have to find at least 5 suggestions that you found interesting enough to take to step 2. And step 2 is we open up the Bureau of Labor Statistics Operational or Occupational Outlook Handbook, the OOH, also online, also free. We type in those exact job titles that came up in the ONET, and then we research them. And I make the patient teach me about ones from that list that they've learned about, that they've found more interesting or more in sync with what they're looking for in their lifestyle. After we've done that couple of moves, the next thing I usually do is a life values inventory, where we go through and talk about what are the things that matter to you. Because some people will say financial security. Some people will say, I just want a family. I don't necessarily need money. I just want to find the right people in the right place. Some people say a beautiful home. Some people will say time to travel or recreational time or time by myself. I want to get that list going because I want to use that to guide us in your searching. Because we might find a job. You could, join the military if you need to. And we can get you employed, but that might not sync up with a bunch of other things that are really important to you. So using those tools, Alex, that's usually where I start. And all of that is curiosity driven. All of that is you inside of your head talking it out with other people. That develops the appetite. That develops the motivation. That gets the momentum a little bit. So then we can start saying, okay, now let's get down to this 3 to 5 list of industries or jobs that we want to target. And let's continue to just do research. Now we're searching for jobs.
But
and now we're getting those ads.
Is he wanting to switch careers? I mean, he wants to get a new job, but
he said he's interested in video game development now. So he seems to be saying I'm open to change. And that seems like a big switch for him. And he talked about how he had to take an intern role, a contract role, even to get his foot in the door in his industry.
Yeah.
So blank slate, I'm interpreting that to mean a pretty wide net. And that, Alex, is where I would want you to start. I want you to start with cognitive work, not action work. Because we think about the stages of change. Right now, you're kind of building up motivation to get to an action stage. I'm very comfortable with you in a preparation stage where we're just gathering and thinking in an intentional way that ultimately reveals potential paths. And then once we identify what those are, now we're looking up job listings right now. Now we're also figuring out where does this industry post their jobs? Because you might be looking on Indeed, but that's not where the industry posts their jobs. They post it on Built-in or LinkedIn or one of these other ones. So you've got to start doing that research before you're even ready to find anything and then apply. And then once you start finding those jobs, the next step in the process that I have my patients do is we then steal all the job descriptions and we start harvesting this data. And we start asking, what does the resume need to look like to match this. If I'm trying to fine tune my presentation so that I match this job, what strengths am I going to emphasize? And that, again, it's very cognitive. It's very fun to do. I always tell people to log into Indeed and make an account, and then go on your desktop and on your web browser, go up to the top right, and you can choose to re-access Indeed as an employer. And any account can do this. And when you access it as an employer, you can type in a job in an area, and it will pull up resumes for that job in your area. They'll be anonymized, the names will be gone, but everything else on the resume will be accurate. And that gives you a great idea of like what people that identify as the sales regional manager say about themselves. How are their resumes organized? What does their experience look like? So all those little pieces, Alex, are you doing real life things that will have a tangible guiding momentum to you. And as you start covering that ground, that's whenever you're going to start submitting those resumes, and you're going to feel excited for it. And that's when you're going to feel like you understand why you're doing this, what your purpose is, what your intentions are, what fish you want to catch, and what to do with them when you finally get one on the hook.
That would all be also really good advice if you had something like a 40 for 40 list. Like 40 things to do before you turned 40.
Okay.
Could be like
That's
that
good
exact
advice.
same
Life
word for
coach.
word.
Coming in
Yeah.
hot, yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what made me think of that.
One bite at a time.
Yeah.
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 One strawberry
And you shouldn't
bite.
put it off either.
No.
Because
Start doing
That's what
it.
I was about to
at
say.
some
It's like,
point,
gotta.
the snow's going to melt, and you can't. What are you going to
Summertime
do?
sensitive
Ironically,
goals.
that's where I was going to go next with this when the writer put their avoidant. Again, very relatable for myself.
Yeah.
And really for me personally is just breaking it down into those digestible bites and in time frames. And you don't have to cram in, because I think a lot of times we get really motivated and we're like, we're going to do like 5 things today. This is something over the years, like Peter and I have discussed too. And then you feel like a failure at the end of the day when you only did 3 of the things instead of 5 things.
Because that's accurate.
That is like if I did 3, I'm like, yay. So you feel like a failure, or then by the end of the day you're playing your game again, and the next day you're like, well, why does it fucking matter? Because I didn't do anything yesterday.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions a lot of people have is this idea that, I will do it as soon as I capture some motivation, or as soon as motivation hits me.
Right.
And motivation doesn't work that way. You have to, momentum.
Momentum.
That's the word I'm looking for. You have to create momentum, and you have to, and it's done through really small steps.
Yes.
And you just start with one thing really small that I can do right now, and then the next thing, then the next thing, the next thing. And you have to, momentum is something that you have to create. You can't wait for it to hit you.
Like if you're talking about Jim's suggestions, I mean, day 1, just make a list of things I enjoy doing, or things what kind of video games would I want to create? Like kind of brainstorming. Just spend 10 minutes, 30 minutes the whole day, and then you did it. Check.
Yeah.
Did that.
I say this with currently a 27-day streak on Duolingo.
Oh, hell yes. That's amazing. You don't have the sad owl that looks like it's dying.
The owl's dead. Yeah. I think
the owl
announced
died.
The owl's dead.
But no, that's the furthest I've ever gone. So
Wow.
That's amazing.
chipping away.
Yeah.
I do like that note, though,
He
about...
is doing English, though, so don't,
Yeah.
don't be too impressed out there.
I mean, it's
getting better at it, too.
Yeah.
I really could tell.
Oh my gosh, mine is
I'm
dead.
getting
There's
good.
X's on its eyes.
Yeah, he's dead now.
Yeah.
I like also the note of urgency.
He had to check.
I did. I was like, what does my owl look like?
The owl's dead. No, but the urgency is important, Alex, because sometimes we can feel like, okay, I'm going to find myself right now. And I've had patients try that route where they never get intentional or targeted in their objectives. And they just languish in this land of like, all ideas on the table, man. I'm just like continuing to explore. And they live in a world where bills come due and they need to make progress with their lives. So like, I really like the idea of urgency, and I like a funnel strategy. I want to start broad, and I want to start at the emotional conceptual level, but I want to funnel this down till we start getting increasingly practical with a handful of real potential objectives. And then we're going to start mobilizing on those objectives. We're going to do real tasks. It has to start getting legs. And Alex, I'm glad you're writing in, because that senses urgency in you. That means you see the problem. So do not let time, continue to pass you by on this, man. Get activated with these first steps that get your brain into the game. And then it's about, using that momentum. A lot of people try to arbitrarily just set rules for themselves. Like, I'm going to submit 3 applications a day. And it's like, I want to get to that point.
Yeah.
That's a great time. I don't want you starting there.
No.
Because I think you'll lose momentum way too fast.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's start with making this something you have buy-in for, that your heart's in, and then start hitting that button and knowing what you're hitting that button for, even having like a good idea of what they're looking for. So anyway, Alex, it's very relatable.
Yeah.
I think a good portion of the federal government right now is right in your shoes.
I was just thinking.
Yeah, I was like, Jesus, Alex,
did you work for
live
the
in
VA?
DC? I'm in Texas. Like, okay. So anyway, Alex, it's a great question. It's very timely in world history right now. But good luck on this. Get active. Look up those websites I told you. That's a great place to start, and then funnel down into the specifics. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're talking about post-election friendships. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Judy Schneider, Leon Kassab, Carolyn Alberts, Sammy Scoop, Sarah Smith, Mike Helm, Darren Cunningham, Cody the DeLorean Guy, and Brady Malachek. If you would like to sponsor the show, become a Thera producer at patreon.com/therapy. All right.
Hey, good job. You said his name right. That was excellent.
Who?
Malachek.
Oh,
You said Brady's name perfectly.
Oh,
As far as Jim knows.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
what hungover Nick does.
Yeah.
Says the
Well
name's
done.
right.
I'm not hungover. Technically, I'm just extremely tired.
Yeah.
Okay.
How'd
All
you
right.
shoot?
Pretty good, actually. Well, here's the thing. So we had
For a drunk.
Yeah.
No, so it was funny. So we were betting, of course. And so it was me and my buddy were playing it. I won't get into the details, but it was the two of us versus the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we were killing them, like just absolutely destroying them. And
Murder.
then on the 15th hole, I bought us all shots of Crown, which we took at the tee box on 16. And then from there, just night and day, like everyone.
Oh, no.
All four of us.
Tank.
Just
Oh,
tanked.
no.
Just absolutely
So
destroyed.
alcohol's not a performance-enhancing drug?
Not for us.
Wow.
All right.
You're no John Daly.
Yeah, that's for
Yes.
sure. Okay. Whitney,
Yes.
why are manhole covers round?
Because it's a hole. I'm just kidding. Are there options? It's manhole, round. Holes are round.
Judges agree.
They're easier to roll for transport.
Oh.
A round cover won't fall into the hole. They allow easier access for tools, or it's a design tradition from ancient Rome.
Oh, gosh. I'm
I
torn
actually know
between
this
A
one.
and D.
I believe I know this one too.
I'm going to go with A.
You are wrong.
It's the won't fall into a hole thing, right?
I think
correct.
it's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess
Because
that
it's
does make
round,
sense.
fall.
Yeah.
There is a way it could be positioned that it would fall.
But if it
Whereas
gets
if
wedged,
it's round,
if it's
there is
round.
no way it can ever go in that hole.
Yeah.
Correct.
Huh.
Interesting.
That's what she said.
I'm like, okay,
That's why
Jim.
penises are square.
checks out.
Right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why everyone has square penises.
That's what the doctors told me.
I've been wrong this whole time.
Jim, what is a jiffy scientifically defined as?
Ooh, it's going to be unit of time. But I don't know what that unit of time is. So I'm going to take options.
Okay. Is it
Peanut butter.
the time it takes to travel 1 centimeter, 1/trillionth of a second,
Ooh, a
the
GIF.
time it takes an atom to vibrate once,
Hmm.
or 1 nanosecond?
Ooh, I'll take a nanosecond.
It is wrong.
I want A.
Is it B?
It is A.
Oh.
Time
Yeah.
it
What was
takes
A? Centimeter?
light to travel 1 centimeter.
Okay.
Wow, that's a jiffy. That's
And
great.
that is it for interesting trivia. So we got to go back to Disney. Jacob.
Shit.
Yeah.
But I knew the other two.
I know.
Yeah. You'll know this one. What is the name of the chandelier dropping scene that became iconic in Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame stage adaptation? What is the name of the chandelier dropping scene?
Drop the chandelier.
Phantom of the Opera.
I know.
Let's go with let's go with options.
I don't think I've ever seen Hunchback of
I have,
Notre
but
Dame.
I mean,
I have
as a
not seen it
kid,
either.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen this movie.
it's good.
A, The Bells of Notre Dame.
Okay.
B, Sanctuary.
Oh.
C, Out There. D,
Oh.
Hellfire.
And what was the question?
What is the name of the chandelier dropping scene that became iconic in Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame?
I'll give you some help.
I know the
adaptation?
No,
It's
I
a
got
song.
it. I got it. Oh,
Okay.
I don't know the songs.
Yeah.
But I know the Hunchback yells "Sanctuary"
Yeah.
a lot, so I'm
Feels
going with
right.
that.
Probably.
It is A, the bells.
Yeah,
of
the
Notre
bells.
Dame.
That's what I was going to say. I think
idiots.
it's the bells of Notre Dame.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. All right. I just happened to get the Star Wars one. Who is the supreme leader?
Just happened, even though
of
he's
the
looking
First
at the
Order
computer.
Of the Force Awakens.
Wait,
that
what was
would
it?
be Snoke.
Wow.
And it is.
Didn't know that one.
Nope.
Lame.
20 points.
Loser.
All right. Well, he's in the lead.
All right.
With 20 points.
Next question.
He doesn't make the rules, folks.
I don't.
Sorry.
I don't like it either.
Take the pitches that come. Post-election friendships. My friend of about 6 years voted for Donald Trump in the 2024 election, and I am finding it difficult to not grow resentful toward them for doing this. We don't talk about politics, so I don't know where their head's at on the current state of things, so my brain tries to fill in the gaps, which never turns out to be positive. By the way, I listened to Jim's post-election episode, which I appreciated, specifically thinking twice before losing relationships over the election. But these feelings of resentment are still bubbling over, and I don't know how to address them. Please share your thoughts. Thanks, Anonymous. Yikes.
Well, another way to say fill it in those blanks is saying you're making assumptions about what the person's thinking.
Probably.
That's the direction I was going to go. I mean, you say you know that you've known this friend for about 6 years, so I don't. That means different things to different people. Like you
Sure.
could be really close or like just kind of close. So depending on how close you felt toward this person before they voted for Donald Trump, I would suggest again trying your best to share a version of your perspective, because I think we get really caught up in what people want to throw around as quote facts based on like media, you know, well, he's this and you're that, you know, like all of that, but instead making it more human and kind of reaching out to them in a way that's saying, hey, I know we see differently on this and we don't have to get into a full-on political discussion, but this is how I feel. Again, the I feel statements. This is how I feel about this situation. It feels scary because I have family and friends who are worried about getting deported. I'm worried about my job because I work at the VA, like whatever the case may be.
Or the economy.
Or just the economy in general, or what our future looks like because Trump is threatening and making a lot of changes quickly.
Yeah,
it's like very quick and extreme. And so that can incite fear. And I think trying to go at it from that perspective and then ask them, you know, this is what I would do. I would ask, like, what made you want to vote for Trump? Like trying to have a very calm discussion about that. I do have family. One, she identifies like I'm passionate about politics, but mainly just Trump.
Wow.
And this is someone who was like my best friend since we were born, basically. Like, and so it's been a challenge navigating that. But we can still sit and have it feels uncomfortable sometimes, but have a discussion about what are your thoughts, what are your feelings.
This pretty well. You could talk about it. Okay.
It does.
That's huge.
And I think it's the way we talk about it. Her social media will send me up a fucking wall. No,
Okay.
I can't look at that because it's
Social
insane.
media is not a good way to communicate with someone, or like to get an idea of like because I see stuff all the time, but like when I talk to people in person, it's a different conversation.
It's very
than, like,
different. Yeah,
Of course.
And so I think just
What do you
gaining
mean, of
understanding.
course. I just dropped some knowledge here.
Yeah.
And I'm
I'm the
agreeing.
first person who's ever said this.
Yeah. Nick is tired. If he's
made
turning
this
on me when I agree
observation.
with him.
How dare you?
Yeah,
You
like
didn't agree with me hard enough.
I supported Nick and he fucking turned on me.
It's on a 3-day drive fast.
Jesus.
Don't worry. He gets a little
I was like,
racist.
this question is so appropriate. Go listen to the Patreon for my
Go to
insane
the Patreon.
story.
Whitney just got in a drive-by debate with somebody. Literally,
It
this
wasn't
just
a
happened.
debate. Debates are two ways.
That's right.
I just got yelled at out the window.
Drive-by slurring.
Shitloads of slurs.
I've interacted with that guy like 3 times before too.
Oh
It's
my
not like we
God.
have interact very often. Anyway, but yeah, I think trying to explain that if it's somebody you're close to or just gather insight from where they're coming from, it won't change your view, but it might help soften it
Yeah.
and gain a little understanding. It may not. Maybe it'll feel hurtful still afterwards.
Yeah.
It is still frustrating at times, again, having friends in that realm. But it's just part of that ongoing process of you have to decide what kind of friendship you have with this person ongoing. Maybe you do pull back a little. Like,
Right.
maybe you don't talk about politics after that. Gaining some clarity does help reduce the political talk with that friend because I kind of know where she's coming from.
You don't have to talk about people when it comes to politics either. You can talk, sorry,
Yes.
you don't have to talk about politicians.
Yes, yes.
That's the people that I mean specifically.
Yes.
You don't have to talk about politicians. You can talk about ideas. You can talk about ideals. You can talk about programs. You can talk about things that you would like the government to do. You can talk about things you would like the government to not do. You can have all of those conversations that can be a little politically charged, but they're real conversations with real facts that affect real people. And it's a lot easier to have just a normal, heartfelt conversation about a topic like the fish and wildlife people who manage a lot of the state and national parks were fired this week. We can talk about how those state and national parks are going to be upkept going forward.
Right. That's a great example.
You can just talk about that thing.
Yeah.
And you can talk about the funding for that thing. You don't have to talk about because frankly, you don't know what the real reason was that it got cut anyway. And all you're doing is arguing over the argument points that MSNBC and Fox News and all of these other news sources are giving you to argue over.
Yeah, that makes it so much harder with this. And you know, what the writer says here,
And it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't fucking matter how crazy Robert Kennedy is.
Right.
It doesn't matter that he has a worm in his head or I don't know what's going on with him. It doesn't matter that people fuck couches. None of these things matter. We need to talk more about the couch fucking thing. We need to bring that back.
There was a pass.
Yeah.
That one should be discussed.
Yeah.
You know, what kind of couch was it?
But I mean, you can talk about these people that you don't like and don't agree with, but you don't really know much about these people.
Right.
Because the same way that your friend's social media is not your friend, their social media and the government's, whatever Trump's thing is, Truth.
Yeah.
Truth Social, all of those things, they don't represent even, let's say for the sake of argument, Donald Trump actually sits down and types every single tweet that comes out, and every single, I'm calling them all tweets, but whatever social media post comes out. And let's say that he's doing all of those.
Yeah.
Even at that point, that doesn't paint the picture of who that person is.
Sure.
That doesn't paint the full picture of what he thinks and what he feels and all these other things. So you're starting with not a good amount of information anyway, and then trying to build an argument on that.
It is such a different reality. I mean, I think back over all the other presidencies that we've seen. And, by everybody's standards, the Republicans, the very pro-Trump MAGA type Republicans, every version of liberal, every neutral person, we can all agree that just fact-based and objectively, the Trump presidency came out of the gate, fast. They had a plan. They knew what they were doing.
Shit.
It is moving very, very quickly. And so, there is this neck break reaction of whoa, a lot is happening. And I understand where the writer's coming from, because I think in a lot of past administrations, presidents often came off as sort of benign, in dishwater. It was sort of like, they make all these empty promises and they're going to do these things. And I don't know, we're all just kind of waiting around to see what really happens. But you're not in the first 100 days, watching a huge purge of the government or the military being mobilized to go get people. And it's a lot. And so I can understand where the writer's coming from, where they say, look, this is so big that it's hard to just sweep it under the rug and say, hey, we can still be friends.
Yeah.
The writer's saying, look, if I'm being honest, even though we don't talk about this, I am developing a deep resentment knowing that you contributed to the reign of this person who I think in the writer's opinion sees as immoral or wrong.
But now this is an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
How much blame does a single voter of any administration deserve from people who didn't vote for that administration?
Yeah, right, yeah.
And in the past, the agreed upon amount has kind of been zero.
Sure, yeah.
And now, for some reason, it is not.
I think, and I don't want to.
And I think it's the extra communication. I think it's all the social media. I think it's all of that. Yeah. We know so much about everybody now.
It. Yeah.
And it's just that.
Because Trump did not suddenly do things he didn't promise to do. No, he's doing all the things he said he was going to do.
There have been crazy fucking presidents before.
Right.
Andrew Jackson was a lunatic.
Sure.
Teddy Roosevelt. These people were not sane people.
I'll go on the record right now and say I didn't vote for either of them.
Okay.
Wow.
Just I want everybody.
I was going to say it's hard to remember
we're showing
their
our
terms.
cards then. Yeah. We're just okay.
You should do your civic duty, Nick.
Yeah.
I do have a tough time giving advice on questions like this.
Yeah.
Because I was talking to one of my coworkers when we were stranded up in Reno about the election and about
I got snowed in Reno.
We got to make that a song.
Just everything in the political climate and just how stressful it is. And I pretty much just explained like, you know what, I've kind of just tuned out. Like, because I can't deal with this shit. I can't do this every fucking day, And so I've just been tuning out as much as I possibly can. And then I realized, like, I'm saying that from a very privileged position.
Yeah. I think that all the time.
I am a white, heterosexual, cisgender male.
Citizen.
Like, yeah, I can check out. I can easily afford to check out.
Your existence is not being targeted.
And so like me giving my advice to other people is kind of ridiculous because it's not like that for everybody.
Right.
Other people can't check out. It does matter,
And, to me, it's adjacent to like when somebody's in a big, like a specific religion. And sometimes you're like, look, I'm all about you having your freedom and I have my freedom, and like we all sort of have this policy of like, look, do whatever you want, just don't hurt anybody. But if you find out that religion is taking social action, is influencing the world, is going to pick winners and losers.
Yeah,
and,
you worship whoever you want,
right?
Up until I share the road with you. So as soon as you let Jesus take the wheel, then now it's my problem.
We have a problem.
And
there are people that have had to sit back and say, as much as I like you as an individual, you've aligned yourself with an organization and in a set of beliefs that enable that organization that I find impossible to coexist with in a peaceful way. I have to oppose that. Right. And that's whenever the world becomes very binary. And we've seen it happen in society sometimes where it's like, look, and you've seen people on both sides saying, no, you do have to just go ahead and pick a side now. And like that needs to be your team and that needs to be the people you associate with because it's
I think
really
that's
hard
terrible
not to do that.
I think that's a terrible way to view it. I think it's a terrible way to live.
It is.
You can't. I would challenge Nick a little bit on saying that he's checked out. Because what degree of checked out, when you say checked out, I bet it's a similar degree to how I've checked out. And that is, I see some headlines. I see a news article every now and then.
Yeah.
I generally keep up with what's going on.
Yeah.
But I'm not taking in any kind of news source all the time.
Right.
Because that is exhausting.
Yes.
But I generally know what's going on. I know big things that are happening. I know executive orders that happen because my phone buzzes and tells me that's in there.
Right.
And if I need to read up on something, then I do a little Googling, do a little looking up and look up some information on it.
Yeah, I will watch, PBS NewsHour because it's news that I trust.
Right.
Because it's boring. Because I think that's very important. It has to be boring.
Yes.
But I also know that it's just 1 hour.
Yeah.
And it's not like I watch that and then get stuck watching the next thing and then the next thing and the next thing. It's like,
but I'm only challenging you on that because I think a lot of us are saying, and I'm guilty of this as well, we're all saying we have checked out.
Yeah.
And checked out to us means we know everything that's going on. We're just not watching people discuss it ad nauseum.
Checked out means I'm back to where I was in 2010.
Yeah. Like I know everything that's happening. I know every piece of big news out there that's going on.
Right.
I'm just not watching 4 people sit behind a desk and discuss it.
Yeah. Yes.
With Zoom calls.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
I would agree.
And it's tough whenever you see friendships and family stuff get involved in this.
But you said binary. Nothing in our lives is binary. No opinion is binary until you get down to like, do people deserve to live?
Sure.
You get down to like basic questions like that, which I know there's some debate around some of that. And that's not what I'm talking about, so don't come at me about that.
No
Thanos.
adding him.
Yeah. But I am talking about things like government programs. I'm talking about things like federal workers, what federal workers are necessary, all these types of things.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I might have an opinion on it. I might not. I might, if I really did some reading on some stuff, I might have some opinions on things. But at the end of the day, if I have an opinion on what federal workers should be and shouldn't be employed,
right?
Cool. That and however much money it costs to buy a coffee now, buy me a cup of coffee.
It's fucking $7.
Yeah. Ridiculous. No, I don't need the eggs.
Oh, okay. You don't get the eggs in there.
No egg whites.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ryder, it's a really hard one. And you know what? It's a time in our country where this is a very divisive season. This is a very bold presidency. That might be the most polite way to say that. It's very neutral. And I get it. This idea that like, hey, these things are not surprises. This is exactly what was on the menu. And this is, from the writer's perspective, something that the writer says, I see this as wrong.
Yeah.
And so if I am friends with somebody who supports something that I see as wrong at a big capital W kind of level, how do I continue to have that friendship? And I guess I don't have an answer for that because it's difficult because I don't want to talk that person out of it and say, no, your feelings are invalid. Let's minimize this.
Yeah.
And I also don't feel comfortable saying, you're right. Anybody who supports Trump is a fascist. Like, come on. That's silly too. That's a caricature of the truth. And so that weird, awkward tension that the writer's living in, I think there's a lot of Republicans living in that right now too, that are like, hey, Democrats that, see the world fundamentally differently. I'm scared of you. I think that, you have these myopic visions. And how can I be your friend if you believe that, whatever Fox News told me that you hate America or whatever it is. And so it's
Fifth
like
trimester babies getting aborted.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You're
or
cool
the
with
teachers
that.
are giving kids behind their parents' back, like
Sex changes.
Yeah, sex,
Yeah.
I was like, I had a friend say that, and I was like, you literally think that's happening? I had to use my Vegas card there. I said, I live in Las Vegas, like the craziest town in America.
We've done some shit.
I have tons of therapists who work in the schools. Never heard of that. You would think this would be
I've
the place.
never heard of a kid getting on the bus one morning, one gender, and getting off the bus that afternoon.
Their
a
teachers
different
giving
gender.
them injections, like in lunchtime. Like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know.
But this
But
is
they
the
think
tension that
that's
we're
what
all
they were
living
told.
under.
They're like, oh, I thought that was real.
And it's tough, and it is so tough because it's also in like I guess I just more so agree with the complexity of it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's what hurts. Is like I don't have an answer. I just look at it and go, boy, it is really hard. Even if you're not getting fed a line of horse shit from all these like news companies that just want clicks and want your eyeballs on the thing and want us to be terrified and enraged 24/7 because that's what keeps you to stay through the commercial and get to the next fucking thing. Even if you aren't drinking all that Kool-Aid and you're just frustrated because you're like, no, at the end of the day, this is such a big, bold presidency that it's a watershed presidency. You need to take a side. And if you are passively supporting it or even not doing anything to oppose it, then you're on the side of the oppressor, and that bothers me too.
Yeah.
And like, fuck, I just hear that and go, I don't have an answer for that.
I can't
so
disagree
hard.
with it. I do have a little bit of a challenge for you, Ryder.
Yeah.
And that is, don't stop being friends with someone based on who they voted for. Stop being friends with someone, if you need to, based on who they are.
Yeah.
So if you think that they are a bad person or whatever you think of them, and because they are a bad person, they took these political actions, fine. And if you want to spell it out that way, I would encourage you to do that more than encouraging you to distance yourself from someone simply because of an action they took.
Right.
I like that.
Like a voting booth action is still just an action.
Yeah.
And they take that action as informed, however as informed as they are. But I mean, if you think they're a good person, then
I like that advice.
hang out.
Yeah.
There's a saying that life is
But
local.
if you can't get past it, you can't get past it.
That's the thing.
That's
But
another thing too.
life is local. And I like your point, Jacob, that like the first way that we evaluate should be, how do I see you treating me? How do you treat the people I like?
Yeah.
And what is our life and our relationship like together?
When we go get coffee, how do you treat the barista? Like all this stuff.
Because arguably, you could take almost anything. You could say, hey, the thing that's probably going to end planet Earth is going to be climate change.
Okay.
Do you drive a vehicle that is electric or do you use gas? Like, well, I use gas. Okay, well, Jim, from that choice, I think that you are making a choice that you think is innocent and passive, but here's all these really important implications that ultimately amount to violence and injustice and exploitation. You're wearing a diamond on your finger. That came from the wrong place. Like, you can easily start connecting these dots and have this domino effect where you can say, based on this thing you did in this passive way because you like your car and you think oil's, fine and climate change is exaggerated, you're causing this great calamity. And from that basis, I can cut you out of my life because I could be really, really hurt and offended by that. And I think you're part of the problem. But I agree with Jacob.
And also, fair.
We're overlooking the fact that you are still my friend.
Yeah.
You like me. You use your gas guzzler to pick me up when it's raining outside and my car's broken down. And
it's kind of like if you never knew who they voted for, would you still?
Right. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough one, right?
But I mean, and truly, if you can't get past it, you can't get past it.
Can't get past it.
Well, I think that's where I like what I said. No, I'm just kidding. I do. That's kind
I would like to take this opportunity to point out that I agree with myself.
No, I think that's kind of like the end point to what the end point of like my intentions and asking them like, hey, this is how it feels to me. What are your intentions kind of by voting for Trump? Like, what was your perspective? I'm trying to gain clarity, maybe to find out who you are better.
I'm scared to ask. I don't want to talk about it.
Oh,
like
really?
Because at this point,
I'd like to know.
Once I start asking, they're not going to say anything that I go, oh, okay.
Well, no, it's not to understand and be like, that makes sense. It's more like, in my opinion, it's almost like, oh, they're ignorant or crazy. Or like, I don't know. Like,
I just need to know, are you ignorant or are you crazy?
Are you a bigot? Right? Like my neighbor who drove by me, I'm like, oh, I know why you voted for Trump. Like, I'm not going to be friends with you. Like, that's not going to happen.
It seemed like you have represented yourself as a bigot to me, so I'm going to treat you as somebody who's a bigot.
Yeah, Trump or no Trump, that dude just turned out to be kind of weird. Like, he just said really weird fucking things.
But I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with who that person voted for.
Right.
I don't need to know who that person voted for.
Yeah,
exactly.
He had that interaction with Whitney.
Yep.
That's enough for Whitney to say, like, okay, that can be our last interaction.
I'm sure there are probably, I'll go out on a limb and say there are probably some really shitty people who voted for Harris.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah, right.
I voted for Harris.
Yeah.
I am a piece
shitty
garbage. I am a terrible
There's
person.
that. I mean, Exhibit A. That's right there. Yeah. For me, I'm a little bit
I am not
reluctant.
company you want to keep.
I'm reluctant to say let's sit down and like communication is going to solve it or make it better, only because like it seems like the more we go into those spaces and have those conversations, I don't know that it heals friendships. It seems to like only exacerbate or like cause each side to try to clarify to the other one and help persuade, and the more they're trying to persuade each other, the further they're pushing each other.
Yeah,
it depends case by case.
Yeah, it depends. That's where I guess like it depends on how close your friendship was to start with. Is it worth doing this for?
And I'll tell you this story. I met a guy the other night. This week, we met in a bar. We had mutual friends that we were meeting up with. A group of us were hanging out in this bar, and so I meet this guy for the first time. And this is a guy that affects my wife's some of my wife's employment. He's like he has some venues, he books, he does all this stuff. So he is. My wife has met him before. He's a little older than I am, but we start chatting and we're chatting, and I remembered in the back of my head that my wife had told me that he was a right-wing guy. She didn't know how right-wing. She didn't know much else about him, but she just told me offhandedly. She was like, yeah, that's kind of all I know about him. Yeah. But also, like, he's friendly. Like, he's a nice guy. And he was perfectly friendly. We had a nice conversation. Our conversation eventually turned to politics.
Oh,
damn.
And we ended up having a perfectly pleasant conversation. We agreed with each other on some points. We disagreed with each other on some points. But, Ryder, at the end of that conversation, we shook hands, we walked away. I forget what point we ended on, but I literally said, like, that seems like a good point to end this conversation on. And like it was also just time to go home. And like, it was great. Like, nobody's mad. Nobody has hurt feelings about anything. Neither of us changed our opinions on anything.
No.
We discussed some stuff, and we truly did discuss some things. And not like lecturing each other. We didn't do any of that kind of stuff. The conversation was not heated at all.
Right?
Yeah. We just had a conversation about it, and we disagreed about things, and then we went home.
Yeah.
And that was something with, I guess, some stakes, because I mean, it could affect my wife's income and possibly booking things and everything. But really no stakes, no real stakes to be had here. Certainly no like long-term friendship or anything like that. And it did zero. And it was kind of the best outcome of that conversation,
right?
That we didn't leave angry.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I don't know how many of these conversations you want to even try to have.
Yeah.
That's a good
what can you gain, right? And
That's
sometimes
it.
like the best you could do is nothing happens.
Yeah.
That would be really great, you know, and maybe nothing's gained in it. But Ryder, you're not alone. I mean, you know, humans are going through this, I think, all over the place. And
you got to figure out what your goal is, too. You got to figure out if your goal is to stay friends or to convert them over to your way of thinking.
Very good point.
And the latter almost never happens.
It's just not gonna.
Yeah. So the first thing you got to ask yourself is, what is the value of this friendship? What can we offer each other? What can we bring to each other's life in a felt way?
Yeah.
And there's value to that, you know, even if it's somebody that fundamentally disagree with, and you think, man, your views enable something that frightens me and I'm not okay with. Okay, but if my car was broken down, you and I are close enough that you would come over. If my kids were in danger, I could trust it. Like, there's something about that bond that you don't share with somebody that voted the same way as you.
Yeah.
And if they say something that you just simply disagree with, if they say something about, you know, a certain group of people, and I mean, you're well within your rights to say, hey, that thing you just said, it's wrong, and I think you're a little out of line for saying it.
Yeah.
You can call your friends out on stuff.
Yeah.
And you can have conversations about that thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
You can have conversations about that one topic, and that's fine. And you can say, you know, I identify with these people, and I think that you shouldn't generalize them.
That last statement there, Jacob, I think is one of the most profound things I've seen for influencing others' opinions on politics.
It always is.
It's such a profound thing, because people say, you know how these liberals are, you know how these folks are, and they'll go off for a few minutes, and then, you know, in a very polite, smiling kind of way, you'll then reveal, hey, I am that thing, you know. And I've witnessed a conversation like that once, where a guy was saying, you know, these gay people, blah blah blah, and the guy he's talking to was gay.
Yeah. Oh my
and he just
God.
didn't know.
Oh
and he's a
my
coworker,
God.
and so he just figured, like, we're just two, you know, cis dudes, you know, hanging out. We're bros, you know. I work with you all day.
Holy shit.
And so he kind of like going off. He's like, oh no, the gays, no.
He's like, my
and
husband
then, you know,
and I.
and his coworker was perfectly polite. He wasn't like, you know, waiting to get him. And then he just said, hey man, you know, you kind of threw out there a lot pretty quick. I was going to jump in and warn you, but I'm gay, I'm married, and my husband's going to be here. You know, he's going to meet us up for dinner. Like, and it was like one of those like names that you don't know is a male name, is like, you know, just didn't know. And so I was like, oh,
Alex or
something.
Yeah,
Alex is your husband. Like, yeah. It's short for Alexander. Like, and like those moments are so humanizing, I think. You know, or you'll hear the same thing will happen. It's like, oh, the undocumented, blah blah blah, they're illegal, and it's like, you know, the person says, hey, my mother is actually an illegal immigrant. I am a dreamer. I was born here. Yeah. I grew up here. You and I have everything in common. So now you know.
That's usually
it's
followed
profound.
up with, but you're one of the good ones.
Yeah, you're one of the good ones. That's the
so
easiest
true.
way out.
That is how I follow those things up.
I met one of the good ones today.
Nick's wearing the John Deere hat.
That's right.
I'm like,
He
this
wears
is
this
just
John Deere
so
hat.
Midwest.
I'll tell you something that happened to me one time that really it opened my eyes and made me look at something very differently. I was speaking with an old friend of mine who is trans one day, and we were talking, and I had known this person from before they transitioned. I knew them for years before they transitioned. I've known them for years since then. We're still very close friends, and we were having a conversation one day. And it's a heavy conversation, so get ready for a heavy conversation, everybody. We were having a conversation one day about suicide. And we were having a conversation, and I said something stupid. I said something idiotic. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was basically something along the lines of, sure, but you never considered suicide because of your being trans.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I just said that because, like, we are close friends.
Yeah.
As far as I know, you never contemplated this. And so that's just what I'm saying this.
Right.
And they stopped me. They were like, oh, I certainly did. I certainly did. And it gobsmacks you for a second.
Yeah.
You go like, oh.
You're
well,
rethinking a lot of things in that
wrong.
moment.
Right.
Like I didn't even realize that I made this assumption.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like I made that assumption so quickly, I didn't even realize that I had made an assumption about my dear friend.
Yeah.
And they said, in a very friendly, in as friendly a way as you can in that instance, but in a very kind and loving way, obviously, said, no, I absolutely had suicidal thoughts. I had plans in place. I had all of these things.
Right.
And it
opens your eyes.
Yeah, and it really does. I mean, people can surprise you. I guess that's what surprising is. It's when they do something when you're not expecting it.
Yep.
But people will do it. People will. These people that you think you know a lot about, even your close friends and everything, people have a way of just kind of popping up and surprising you when you're really not ready for it.
Sometimes we get to represent that other side, and that is persuasive.
Yeah.
More persuasive than a conversation would ever have, So sometimes just being in your truth, Ryder, is the most meaningful thing. But at the end of the day, your question was, hey, I'm building up this resentment. We avoid this issue. It's fine, but I'm hurting, and I don't know if I can maintain my friendship. And I think all four of us are saying you get to decide on any merit for whatever reason that you can no longer do a relationship.
Yeah.
I've had people discover that their best friend has hit their wife. And they're like, hey, I like you a lot. And I'm sure there's a ton of story that goes along with this. But just knowing that you did this action is tearing me up inside.
Yeah. This is a line for me.
It's a line for me. And it's difficult for the
changing
friends. They're
my
like,
view.
that's not fair, man. Like, I'm getting help, or that you don't understand. You don't know what you did to me. And you're just my friend. And it's like, you're right. All that's true. And for whatever reason, internally, I can't.
Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, is my choice. And I'm not trying to judge you for it.
Right.
I just know this is an issue for us now.
Yeah, I'm glad you're getting help. I
Good.
just personally
I want you to get help. And I want us to work on our friendship. I want all these things.
I
whatever it
really
is.
struggled with that with my friend OJ.
Oh, yeah.
Your
Rest in
buddy?
peace. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
He's with the Angels now. Yeah.
Y'all that's your old golfing buddy, right?
It was,
You and the
golfing
juice.
buddy.
Hanging out in the clubhouse.
Anyway, Ryder, good luck with this. We'd love to hear dialogue on the Discord. And if you're not already with us at patreon.com/therapy, you get access to our Discord. It's a live chat room, and it's broken into little channels, and there's always a new one for whatever episode's featured that week. And it's always really neat to just join the listeners and watch them share stories and chew on these ideas. It makes me just really in love with our community because we're a very nuanced group.
Very cool.
Some people get out there and say, hey, I'm really frustrated with this, but it's received well and people talk through it. It's just really nice. And so I'm sure that this will be one that they have a lot more insight than we do. But Ryder, good luck on this. It's going to be a long 4 years for you. Buckle up. But hopefully this is something that you find some clarity on and able to take a step in.
We're down to 3 years and 10 months already.
Oh, already?
Woo!
Oh, come on.
Yep.
Yeah, this
Countdown.
is blink and it's over. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're talking about demeaning ourselves, which we always do on this show.
Demeaning
You're
more?
listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Judy Schneider, Leon Kassab, Carolyn Albert, Sammy Scoop, Sarah Smith, Mike Helm, Aaron Cunningham, Cody the DeLorean Guy, and Brady Malachek. If you'd like to sponsor the show and become a therapy producer, head on over to patreon.com/therapy. All right.
Disney Triv. Let's
When we
go.
last left our
I
intrepid
forgot.
heroes,
Yes.
Nick was winning 387-2.
Correct. Switney, what is the name of the Marvel-themed area in Disney California Adventure?
Ooh.
Just
Phone
there.
a friend. Options, obviously, because
Marvel Universe,
that sounds
Avengers Campus, Stark Expo, Heroes Haven.
I think A.
Marvel Universe?
or B. I think it's B.
B, correct.
Yay! And I was like, B, C. When does Jacob stop coughing?
I was setting her up to just say no to all of them.
Jim, what is the name of the private island owned by Disney Cruise Lines?
Epstein Island. I need options, please.
Is it Treasure Cay, Serenity Bay, Castaway Cay, Paradise Cay?
Oh boy, a lot of K's. Let's go Paradise K.
It is Castaway Cay. Jacob, what is the name of Rapunzel's loyal horse companion in
God.
Tangled?
Yeah, you're asking me Disney
Options.
movies from me being old enough to not watch these Disney movies anymore.
Take the
Yeah, I don't know. What options?
Pascal or Pascal,
Okay.
Maximus, Flynn, or Samson?
Talk to Samson. Fly me to the moon and back, son. Remember from Half Baked?
Oh, that's what that's from.
Yeah.
Not
that is
Disney.
not from
Disney. I know.
Smiley face.
Flynn.
Nope.
That's the boyfriend.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
Is it A?
You killed my
A.
It is Maximus. B.
Oh, B.
B is what my final answer is.
Correct.
All right, Nick, what is the name of the Ant-Man themed dining experience
Oh,
on the
jeez.
Disney
That place
Wish
was
cruise
cool.
ship?
Oh, on the cruise ship.
Cruise ship.
Cruise ship.
They have
Jim
one
got
in
cocky.
the park too.
Is it the same?
Where they make the pretzels really big. That's
It's
really
either
cool.
Quantum Encounter,
We had dinner there. It was good.
Oh yeah.
Pym's Kitchen, Avengers Feast, or Marvel Dining Lab. Well, if it's Ant-Man themed, it's got to be one of the first two. So I will say Jim's not shaking his head, so I don't care.
Shaking away the pitch.
I'm going to go Quantum Encounter A.
I think
Pym's
it's the
Test
lab.
Kitchen is
Yeah.
the one in California Adventure.
It's probably gonna have a lab.
Quantum Encounter.
Son of a
Oh.
bitch.
Oh.
Fuck you. I wasn't saying you were wrong. I was just saying the
No,
thing that was
no.
in California Adventure.
You just got capped in the skull.
Yep.
Okay.
Man,
You just
Nick is
take
on
it.
one tonight.
He is
I'm tired.
frustrated. What a
He's
bitch.
cranky.
Yeah, I need to go to bed.
Yeah, go to bed.
Before
Nick
he
just
gets
showed me his left
racist.
nipple aggressively.
You bite this. Demeaning myself from Mike. When I was a kid growing up in the late 80s and 90s, I was often bullied and made fun of. Over the years, I love your commentary throughout the letter. Yay! No!
Not often.
I was often bullied and made fun of. Over the years, I learned to use comedy and making fun of myself as a way to diffuse that. This practice has continued into adulthood, and a friend recently brought it to my attention that I really rip into myself a lot. This is what made me try to figure out where this came from, and now I kind of want to break the habit. I've noticed that sometimes I demean myself so much I start to believe it. I know it's not healthy long term and would like to get away from it. How could I start undoing this behavior? Sincerely, dipshit. Just kidding. It's Mike.
Oh, 80s and 90s bullying.
Yeah.
Other thing.
I can kind of relate to this a little bit. But for me, it was more compliments made me uncomfortable.
Ooh, this is so interesting to me. People are like, I hate compliments. I'm
Yeah.
awkward. I'm.
Yeah. and
What's going on there?
I don't know. I really, yeah. But I've always been that way. If somebody says something, I was always like, ugh, and I just kind of felt weird about it. And so I would do that too, just very demeaning. And then at some point, I kind of just like, I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of doing the demeaning bit. And I just need to learn how to say thank you.
Yeah.
Like when someone says something, just say thank you.
Yeah.
And so I've been practicing that over the last like 10 years. And it helps.
I really like your hat, Nick.
Yeah, but I just don't believe it. I'm not feeling it.
No, this is a whole hat.
That's all the time we have today.
End it there.
We are not helping with this one.
Yeah. It's an interesting coping skill.
That's a good point. I not so much. I didn't feel so uncomfortable with compliments, but I remember being younger, like maybe high school, where there was a lot of information out there about women not really accepting compliments well, or just like, oh no, this whole thing, blowing it off. After like learning about that, I kind of made a point, if somebody does compliment me, it's almost like before I have a reaction emotionally, it's just thank you. Yeah, just to say it. It's like, okay, thank you. So it's kind of a choice more than what feels good. It's not going with your feeling as much, more let me just practice that. And it does feel more comfortable. It's like, yeah, that person is commenting on something. I give other people compliments and they can just say thank you and the end. And that's great. But the kind of self-deprecating or beating yourself up as a way to do it almost before other people can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like beating them to it. Look, they're not going to hurt me as much now because I've already done the damage and I'm in control of that damage.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a mystery how much are they going to hurt me. But
Yeah, if I step on all the punchlines, you can't use them now.
I know, Jim.
You too.
It's not fucking lost on me 8 years into a podcast that you step on punchlines.
In my defense, Jacob does it more than me. He hits me all the time. Takes my fucking
I don't think I do. I do it on occasion.
On occasions.
Jacob's going to gaslight
But
you.
no,
I mean,
it's a real
me
thing.
making that joke is the only punchline that you haven't stepped on.
It's all yours, baby, and you hit it out of the park. You're doing so good
Say
today.
thank you now.
You're really doing
Oh,
great.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, it doesn't feel right.
See, not to Jim. Don't do it to him.
Never think, Jim.
No.
No, but that's the whole bit, right? Is like whenever you're feeling insecure and you grow up as a kid and like people are picking on you for how you look or something about you's off, you take away the ammunition, right? You fire all the rounds into the air and now they can't use them at you. If you're overweight, and many kids were, because the fucking food pyramid told us that we should have 20 goddamn servings of carbs a day.
Love bread.
God damn it. Like, don't bother with that steak or veggie shit. Just get in more cereal, kids. General Mills needs you to do it.
Yeah.
Jesus. But no, like, that is a lot of people. And like, whenever that was your truth, you quickly make jokes at your own expense, and you're constantly finding ways to disarm others. That way they can like laugh. And it feels like the tension in the room has been removed because you've kind of acknowledged whatever you were insecure about in a way that signals that like, okay, well, it would be weird if you continued to pick on me now. Mm-hmm. So like, I've taken that away.
I do think too, like, with that being the defense mechanism, so I'm going to hurt myself before you have a chance.
Right.
Just ends up reinforcing the idea that everyone is out to hurt me.
Sure.
Because then now you
so
can't,
true.
because now you can't distinguish between the people who aren't going to hurt me and the ones who are, because I've already, taken the action.
You hit all of them.
Yeah, everyone's all in the same boat. So I think it becomes very scary then to get out of that habit and just you have to open up to some people are going to hurt me. Yeah. But I'm going to give the people who aren't going to hurt me an opportunity to show that they're not going to hurt me.
I love that. It's ultimately an expression of vulnerability.
Yeah.
By using the humor first, we are not trusting anybody. And I think this is what your friend is telling you, Mike, is they're telling you like, look, you do, and this is a good observation too, that you do this so excessively and so naturally and over decades have gotten so good at it that now it's becoming its own distracting thing. And I've absolutely been in friendships like that where it's like, Jesus, okay, stop. Like you're almost hitting yourself so hard. We need to stop you. Like you're punching yourself in the nose. And it's like, we have to grab your hands. And now this is weird.
Yeah.
That like you're hitting yourself this hard.
And I mean, instead of making fun of yourself, Mike, I think you should try making fun of other people.
Ooh, that's a good angle.
Be
See
a
how
bully.
that goes.
Yeah, be a bully.
Be the bully.
Yeah. Release the warrior.
Turns out it's a
within.
good time.
Yeah.
You're pretty good at it too, we can tell.
It also has the same effect. Nobody picks on you because they fear you.
Exactly.
Strike
Oh, no, here's how I
first.
want you to swing the other direction.
Okay.
I want you to be so ridiculously complimentary of yourself.
Self-affirming? There
Yes.
it is.
But I want you to do it in like an almost sarcastic way. So like whenever somebody
You
says
handsome
something,
son of a bitch.
that's it.
there
Like
it
whenever
is.
somebody says something about a good-looking person,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, you mean like me?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
extremely good-looking.
Right. Little tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
But also you're going the other way with it in the sense that it's still disarming.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
still like not necessarily, I'm saying something that appeases that itch inside of me
Right.
about myself, but I'm doing it in a way that everybody giggles with me instead of
And
me,
you're
like,
also doing the
punching
same
myself in
thing
the
as far
nose.
as like blocking bullying.
Yeah.
Because if you say something like, kind of chuckling and they're like, I am super attractive.
Yeah. I am the
And
Derek
then-
Zoolander
And then
of
somebody
podcast
across
hosts.
the room says, oh, you're really not.
Yeah. Now
Everybody
they're a
just
fucking
goes
weirdo.
like, well, that person clearly didn't get
fuck
the joke.
you.
Yeah, the bit was he's going the other way with it. Yeah, I like that. I think that there's a lot of other adjustments we can make, but it's a stubborn habit, Mike, and it starts with awareness, right? And like having people in your life that notice it and bring it to your
I'm
attention.
glad they brought it up. That's a good point because
What a
it
good
kind of
friend.
shows they care about you. Like, hey,
Yeah.
you're hurting yourself.
much.
Why?
You can also do like a swear jar.
Oh, there it
Oh.
is. Yeah. Every time you,
You gotta put a
I
five.
like these
you gotta put a
practical
5 in the
ideas.
jar.
self-deprecating jokes, you got to like Venmo your friend a couple bucks and then he's just, saving it up. And like,
Yep.
you can have this back.
Do
whenever
any of
you
y'all
don't
watch
do that
New
shit.
Girl or did you?
Oh,
watch
yeah.
it?
yeah.
Douchebag jar?
Douchebag jar.
Yeah.
Like
That was a great
Schmidt.
bit. Yeah. Jar.
Jar.
Every time he says douchey things, and there's just so much
This is
money
kind
in
of
this
the same.
jar.
Like, don't be a
Yes.
douche to yourself.
I like that. And that individual personal accountability, Mike, it is a really hard habit to break, but it's tough because like it does start to bleed into your actual self-image, right? And then people that I've had that do this, they end up with this myopic sense of understanding where they leave conversations where nobody in that room said anything bad about them.
Yeah.
But they laughed when you did it to yourself. And then you walk away thinking, wow, I am a big fat piece of shit. Everybody was laughing at that joke.
Yeah.
They
That
wouldn't
means
laugh
they
if it
agree.
wasn't funny. It was
Yeah.
funny because it's true. And like at some like passive, subtle level, you're creating the enemies. You're creating this sense of disapproval
You're
from
your
others.
own biggest bully.
Yeah, and you're the one.
The call is
Batman.
coming
And
from
they're not
inside the
laughing
house.
because it's true. They're laughing because it's awkward as fuck, and
Yeah.
because you're funny. And like you
Yeah.
just put zingers out there, and they are just objectively good zingers. And so like then they're laughing, but then you end up having this weird, twisted inner dialogue where you convince yourself that you are not worthy or that you don't have anything. And so, Mike, I love that you're being challenged on this. I like the ideas that are presented out, about accountabilities, the swear jar, or even telling groups of friends. I've realized about myself, guys, that I tend to punch myself in the nose a lot as a way to just ease up the tension in the room, get people laughing. And I've been called out for it. So I'm trying not to do that anymore. And you might notice me struggling with that. And that's all I have to say about that. And sometimes telling your friends I'm trying not to do this and giving them that understanding of like, okay, good. Then I will make sure that I don't stimulate you in that direction. Because you used to like the setup.
Yeah.
Right? If I kicked one in the air, you'd knock it out of the park. I won't do that either. So that's a great way to instill accountability in yourself too, is telling people, I catch myself doing this too much and I'm trying not to do it anymore. If you catch me teasing myself or others, call me out. I need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
I do like that you've brought attention to it and that you are going to do something about it. Because, it's like what we just said, in a couple letters ago, is like you have to create that momentum. You're going to have to create the patterns. And it's going to be difficult, because that's been your go-to thing, making fun of yourself. You're going to have to, practice this, and it's going to take some time.
Anyway, good luck, dipshit. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to end the show. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Nobody likes you.
Today's episode is brought to you by Judy Schneider, Leon Kassab, Carolyn Albert, Sammy Scoop, Sarah Smith, Mike Helm, Darren Cunningham, Cody the DeLorean Guy, and Brady Malachek. If you'd like to sponsor the show, become a therapy user at patreon.com/therapy.
Well, as we wrap up the show, we do want to remind you can get the extended show ad-free a day earlier at patreon.com/therapy. You can listen to it on the same app that you're enjoying this on right now. Once you sign up, you just grab a little code, you drop it into your app, everything's easy peasy, and it works. And
Even Nick could do it if he chose to try
if
to.
he chose to actually.
Tried it once.
But he'll read a microwave
hard.
manual cover to cover and know how it works. You also get access to our
Oh,
live
I
chat
have been
Discord
putting my
community.
microwave stuff on the side of the plate.
Oh.
So far, I
I
haven't
did that
noticed any
this week
difference.
too.
Oh, come
Yeah,
on.
no, I think
Come
you're
on.
full
I
of
didn't
shit.
microwave that much stuff
Oh,
this
no,
week.
No, your theory
Yeah.
that the waves cancel each other out
They
implies that they're
do.
all
Yeah,
shooting
go
from
look
every
in
side,
Discord.
and
They
that they're all
prove
going
it.
to hit the same spot.
No,
Like,
but
that
there is
doesn't
a
seem
single
true.
source.
Yeah.
There's a
just
single source.
That's fine. It's shooting from one
in
direction.
the middle.
So there are waves.
I don't know if a band has anything to do with this.
They'll never play together again.
Well, that's
Harry
sad.
Styles.
We've
Not
got
Harry.
some new people supporting
Liam.
us at patreon.com/therapy. Who's new to the therapy?
We got a new TheraPal. Welcome, Andrea.
Welcome, Andrea.
And we have a brand new Thera producer.
Hell yeah!
All right.
Oh, who
Brady
is it?
Malachek.
And you know what Brady can do this week? He can go into the Discord and he can make recommendations for Jim's new 40 by 40
Oh,
slot.
there you
that is
go.
empty.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, and Brady has dirt on me. Brady, I've known Brady since he was like 16. He's in his 30s, and so yeah, I've known this guy for
He's
a
17.
long time. Yeah, and he's like 16 and a half right now. Oh man, yeah. Welcome to the boardroom, Brady. You're officially in the boss's side, and so you can finally take some goddamn control over this show. And of course, we want to praise and worship our theity, the Dark Lord himself, Jim Sfasha, and our Thera partners, the benevolent, revered, generous, and flagrantly pro-therapy diehards who love you all so much they give till it hurts.
Gotta get Nick a yawn
I
button.
know.
Dirty
Get a little
Pete
young.
God, I'm so
and
tired.
Pickett. And we want to thank our bosses, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of the fan club, the Thera producers. Thank you, Jake Schneider, Myra, Robert Brownie Jr., Smitty Scoop, Ben Don, Judy Schneider, Kayla Lansbury, Malia, Leon Kassab, Mason Miller, Richard fucking Macy, Carolyn Albert, Kevin Chamberlain, Tess Miller, Sammy Scoop, Ben Stanley, Slap in Your Face, Sarah Smith, Adam Hathaway, Byler T, Mike Helm, Paris, Darren Cunningham, Lib, Team Monaco, Thunder, Cougar, Falcon Scoop, Heyo, Oscar Swanrose, A Sunny Boy, Slurpy Kai, Motherfucker, Sandra McWaffle, Dan Martin, Hannah Marie, Andrew Langmead, Emma Kane, Alina, Cody DeLorean Guy, Sam Cohn, and welcoming our newest Thera producer, Brady Malachek.
And if you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited,
don't bother this
Why
week.
wouldn't you?
and enjoy spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy. And thank you for supporting mental health.
That's all the time that we got for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, Matt Mattingly's Ice Cream Social podcast. And thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with the world and tag us on the socials when you do. It's at PodTherapyGuys on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter. It's /PodTherapy on Facebook. We're also on Blue Sky. And don't forget about all the extra goodies at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? You can ask anonymously at podtherapy.net. Email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com or click the link in the episode description to be taken to our anonymous Google form. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Whitney.
I'm Jim.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.